Good evening and welcome to Legal Tech Live. This is episode 59, and today we're joined by our guests Bryant Lee and Andrew Tjang of Cognition IP. Now, you may have heard of Cognition IP because they had some really great news just a couple of weeks ago. There's a VentureBeat article that they had gotten some pretty significant funding. We're going to have them tell us a little bit about that and a little bit about their startup journey, as well as some of the obstacles they faced, what Cognition IP does, and they're doing a little bit of a different thing here because it's, as I'm reading it, a bit of a law firm combined with legal technology. So interesting stuff here. I'm joined as well, my guest co-host and rock star co-host, she's back for her second time, is Hannah Konitshek of Legal.io. Thanks for coming back, Hannah.
Yeah, definitely. Glad to be here, guys.
Yeah, and thank you, Bryant and Andrew. Really appreciate you guys being here. Tell us a little bit about yourselves individually, maybe starting with Bryant and then Andrew, and how you guys came together and started building Cognition IP.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. It's great to be here, talking to the community. It's really exciting to chat and be on the show. So my name's Bryant. I started out in studying computer science. And so I was trained as computer science, but then I went to law school. And then I became a patent lawyer in a firm in DC called Cummington & Burling, doing patent work for a lot of different large companies. And so I had always had in my mind wanting to start a company and potentially in the legal space with my computer science background. And when I was at the firm, I think, I noticed that there were a lot of things that could be made more efficient at the firm in terms of how the work was performed, some things that seemed routine that people would spend a lot of time on. And so I wanted to start a company, and looking at the legal tech companies out there, it seems, somewhat, there are some challenges, I think, selling to some law firms because, the budgets are not that big. You have to sell to these large committees, and there's, because of the billable hour requirements, there's not as much incentive for them to, say, reduce hours. And so the angle I wanted to take on this was to create my own law firm and then just outcompete the other firms by making things so much more efficient and better, and sell the services directly to the end user, the client. So on that journey, I reached out to Andrew. He's a friend of mine from when I was in law school, and he can tell you more about that, but I'll hand it over to Andrew.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Nick, it's good to meet you. Thanks for having us on.
Nice to meet you as well. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, so it's funny because I love when Bryant tells people that we met in law school. I actually did not go to law school. I married into it, actually. My girlfriend at the time and that wife was at law school with Bryant. And we were in a long distance relationship at the time. I was in grad school for computer science. And I go up, visit at weekends and, hang out, go to law classes, kind of sit in. And we actually met and bonded over board games, believe it or
not. Which board games? Let's hear that.
Yeah, that's the crucial thing.
Yeah, so we were like sort of snobbish about our board games. We were playing like the Euro games like Bang and Catan and no Scrabble or Monopoly or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and so fast forward 4 years, my wife's in big law. She's been practicing corporate transactional attorney for a few years, and my view into the whole world of big law is through her eyes and through her work, and I think I separately recognize the inefficiencies built into that system. Just watching her work, being up till 3 a.m., doing basically what amounts to search and replace, right? And as a computer scientist, it frustrated me because rather than sleeping, she was doing things that computer scientists had solved decades ago. And I was like, well, there's got to be a better way. And on occasion, I've said, let me just write a script for you. It'll do it a whole lot faster, and then you can go to sleep. And so when Bryant approached me with this idea, it was a no-brainer. It just seemed like this industry is ripe for some disruption. It hasn't really had huge changes for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, at the time I was teaching, so I had a pretty nice job in academia, teaching computer science at Rutgers. I took a leap of absence, took a leap of faith, and began on this journey with Bryant, and I guess the rest is history.
Excellent. And Cognition IP, tell us a little bit. So you guys started discussing this a bit, and when did it really come into being?
We started the company in about October of 2017, and we started the company right when we were applying to YCombinator. So
Okay.
it was really the idea stage when we submitted that application for the winter 2018 batch of YC. So we worked together on that application. We interviewed together, and then we were accepted.
Excellent. All right.
That's awesome. And what did, something that I always like to hear about is sort of like the early years of some of these teams. So like, what did that look like? Were you guys still working full time and you guys were like, hatching a plan and writing a business plan and putting together your application at night? Or did you guys sort of, transition out of your roles and dive in full time before doing the application for Y Combinator?
I was already working on it full time, but Andrew was still had his teaching load because it was the middle of the semester. But luckily, he had like classes only a couple of days a week, so like he could come work together with me on it. So a couple of days before the interview, that YC requires you to go in person for a 10-minute interview. So we have to fly to California for a 10-minute meeting with them. So
that's crazy. Where were you flying from?
Yeah, where were you guys coming from?
East Coast, so Washington D.C. and New Jersey.
Okay.
So I had Andrew come down and basically crash into my house, sleeping on our couch for like a couple of days before that to like just prep, like 3 days of just prep for that.
Okay.
And then we like went out there, we did the interview. They call so when we did the YC thing, like they call you the same day. So, we were sitting there pretty nervous, like at dinner.
I still remember that restaurant. It was a barbecue place.
Can you speak up just a little bit, Andrew? I'm not.
Yeah, sorry. Is that better?
That's better. Yeah.
Yeah. I still remember that barbecue place in Mountain View. I remember because YC either calls you or emails you depending on what they decided. And we were waiting for one of those. And in the middle of dinner, Brian just doesn't say anything. He ups and then he just like leaves the restaurant. And I'm sitting there and I'm wondering what has happened. I run out after him, and then that was crazy. But at the time I had a full teaching load, and I remember for the interview I had a Monday night class. The interview was on Tuesday, so I took a overnight flight, found an Airbnb, had a few hours of sleep, went to the YC interview. We went to dinner, and then I had to catch a red eye back because I was teaching on Thursday again. And that was, it's a story to tell now, but it was definitely a harrowing experience at the time.
At the time, yeah. There are a lot of red-eye flights in the startup community. A lot of those last-minute meetings that I hear about. So,
yeah, that's such an incredible story. Airbnb has a great story about applying for Y Combinator, and they got the phone call when they were driving down the 280, and they had really bad cell service, and like they dropped the call, right? And they're in the car freaking out, being like, they're gonna think we turned it down, like we just lost the opportunity.
I actually don't think Bryant heard whoever was talking to him.
Yeah, Bryant, let's hear this part.
Yeah, did you just black out? Like you just heard, like you saw the phone call and you're just like mind blank?
Well, so I had to leave the restaurant, and then I was on the street, and then like the street was pretty noisy. So like after the call, I was like, yeah, they accepted it, but like whatever else we were talking about, I'm not sure. I was just kind of like saying yes to everything. So
did you have to try and jog your memory afterwards to remember what you said yes to?
Well, I didn't hear it. A lot of it I didn't hear in the first place. So, but I did hear that we were accepted, and I said yes, we're accepting the offer. So I think that was the important part.
That's the important part. Good.
Yeah, who knows? YC might own like 50% of our company. I don't really know.
I know, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, you missed all the terms. They snuck something in there.
So we are live now on Facebook, guys. And there was a little trouble here, so I had to do a little workaround and push it from my public feed or my profile into the group. But if Ellie's looking for us, she should see us live now in the group. We've got Sujesh Krishnan's with us. AJ Richmond has joined. So again, our guests tonight are Bryant Lee and Andrew Tjang of Cognition IP. And so tell us what Cognition IP, tell us briefly what Cognition IP does for the people who are now watching live. What are you doing and what are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so Cognition IP is a modern IP law firm for startups that uses technology to provide a better and faster service. So we provide legal services in the IP field, so patent and trademark. We have lawyers who come to us that are very experienced from big law backgrounds typically, or working in Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies as like in-house counsels. And they work with us and use our technology as lawyers for our firm, using technology we develop on our technology side of the company to provide better high quality work in a more efficient way for our clients, so that they get better work with predictable pricing. And one of the factors that we do offer that's different than other firms is that we offer our services primarily on a flat fee basis instead of hourly, so that it's predictable pricing for the startups, and it also aligns our incentives to make ourselves more efficient rather than spending more hours on things.
Excellent. And so there is a two-part thing here that it plays a little bit with the rules, California rules. You have kind of a two-part company, and I imagine that the law for California rules of professional conduct. So the law firm and the legal technology firm, I imagine those are two separate entities at this time. Is that right?
That's right. So we have a technology company that's venture funded, and then a law firm that's a professional corporation in California, which is you're within the rules of professional conduct. Is only owned by lawyers. Only owned by lawyers.
Yeah. Hannah, jump in whenever you want. I see you thinking.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of so the model that we're discussing, right, and which you guys have deployed, it's something that I think has gotten a lot of press attention in the past few years, especially with Atrium and Justin Kahn's new venture. I think one thing that's really interesting about this is, do you ever envision that the technology side of things will eventually license its technology to other law firms or other practitioners? Or do you sort of think that it will always be a proprietary tool set for the firm?
Great question.
So, the initial go-to-market for us is as a law firm. And so selling our services primarily to startups and providing really great service for them. But, definitely as we provide better experiences and use the technology internally, get it to the place where like third parties can also use it. I think we'd definitely be looking at the opportunities there too. Especially as the market becomes more competitive, it's going to drive more adoption of technology. Right now, technology I think is on the pretty early side of adoption for law firms. They're adopting some of it, but as Cognition IP grows and other firms that use technology effectively grow, then the need for other firms to deploy it will also increase. Mm-hmm. So that will, increase the market size. And it is something we're looking at, like deploying that technology both at other law firms as well as in-house at other corporations and also potentially to government.
I think that, sorry.
It looked like you had something to say.
Yeah, I was going to say that's basically the perfect storm, right? So the perfect storm is that using our technology in-house, eating our own dog food, will drive our efficiencies way up, our margins way up, and it'll allow us to grow a whole lot faster. And if these legacy incumbent law firms want to continue to be competitive, then they're going to need to look for technology solutions. And who better to provide those technology solutions than a company that's been honing it and developing it over the last 4 or 5 decades, and it allows us sort of to play both ends and actually be a force on both sides.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I did obviously I did my homework before. And one thing, so you sort of brought up the notion of margins, right? And how you can increase efficiency. There was one quote, and I forget who it was by, in one of the articles where you had basically stated that the average patent attorney can handle about 50 clients at any given time. And the hope is that with technology, you can sort of up that number, right? Efficiency gains means you can actually work with more people. Have you guys sort of seen that play out? Have you been able to substantially increase the number of clients that an attorney can work with, you know, through virtue of using your software?
Yeah, so we have, and a lot of the software right now that we've worked on is a lot of operational aspects of the firm. So the like case management and getting signatures and all that. And it's already, we're seeing pretty significant gains. So we've had some tests where, we take a process that takes like 20 minutes, but then we use technology and it takes, the technology, the speed and efficiency improvement is like 95%, it takes it to like, 30 seconds. And so if you get rid of all that and the lawyers are just doing the legal stuff, then there's a lot more work you could do that's actually legal related instead of spending your time on like the administrative stuff.
So can you give us an example, say from the inception of trade, for a trademark issue? Can you give us an example? Take us through, somebody comes to you, a startup comes to you, and they've got to file some trademarks. Or trademark application. Can you tell us the time frames that you guys have been able to move things along and potentially pricing in such a situation?
Yeah, so when people come on, one thing we can automate is the actual like engagement process. So when people sign up, we have a process where we can like press a button and it sends an engagement letter to them. So instead of preparing an engagement letter, usually if I talk to a law firm and they want to engage with me, it takes them like 2 days to send this engagement letter to me because the lawyer has to spend 30 minutes or an hour writing it. But, I can just press a button. It takes 10 seconds to do that. They get the engagement letter, they sign it. I send them like an invention disclosure form. We do trademarks or patents. So like if we're doing patents, then I send them a invention disclosure form on the portal. So that is also a press of a button instead of having to like send them this email with it, right?
Right.
If it's trademarks, and we have a form that we can send them automatically similarly.
Okay.
So then they have a view onto the portal where they can enter their own information and onboard. So at a typical firm, you would send them this form, a Word doc that says like all the information about the company, like the legal name of the company, your addresses, your phone number, whatever, what's your issue. But that's also in our portal. So like they can fill that out. It's automatically in our database. And then we collect all this information. We collect further information about their matter. We can get started right away on that project and start working on it. And then at the end of the process, we collect any further information we need for the filing, also through this portal. And then we automatically know what information we need, what we already collected, what we already need, what we still need. So we only collect the stuff we need, and then it's automatically propagated to our other systems. So we're using like best-in-class software for the other parts of the firm. So we use docketing software that's like best in class for that. We have we use communication tools like Slack, and we have email, and we use like SharePoint for file management. So we collect all that stuff into one place, and so it's a lot easier for the lawyers to deal with instead of having to search into all these places. And then it's really just the legal work, like for the lawyer, instead of like administrative parts of it.
Okay. So the onboarding and the forms are created rather quickly from the intake on. So
it's also not just the efficiency angle, right? So, I mean, we have the ability to automatically check things. Mm-hmm. And I think that increases the quality of the work output, over having a human do a lot of these things. So we've caught mistakes that occurred in paperwork because, we have the ground truth stored, and machines are a lot better at these nuanced things than humans are.
Right. Have you ever considered any type of angle where, especially, because you're sitting on that data, you can sort of intelligently set reminders to sort of push notifications to your clients that they should be thinking about something. So I'm trying to think of what a good example of that is. But you know, at different various points in like the life cycle, you can automatically push notifications, you know, that partially acts as like a reminder to your clients. Have you like worked with any of that at all?
I mean, we already have a system in place that does it for attorneys. So we have automated reminders for attorneys for different parts of the patent process or the prosecution process. Actually extending it to clients is on the sort of on the roadmap. So a lot of the things that we see as being efficiency gains for attorneys is also happens to be good for our clients. So if you're a client and you at 3 a.m. you have a question about, you know, where you are in the process, because that's the only time as a founder you have free. You can just log in and then you can see where you are in the process, and you can get some of those answers that you were seeking without having to wait for an attorney to get back to you. And so I think, you know, we're looking at this from the standpoint that it's not just attorney time that we're saving, it's also client time that we're saving. And because we're so entrenched in the startup world and we understand the founder journey, and because we are founders ourselves, right? And we know how busy we are and we know how busy our clients are, finding ways to make that process efficient for them as well is part of our, you know, I guess, our primary goals as a company.
And we have a question from the from Nancy Marilyn in the group. She says, it's high tech but low touch. How have your clients reacted to less lawyer contact?
So we actually aim to have more lawyer contact. So I think like, you know, the goal is to make it easier for lawyers to do their work. So that means that they have more time actually to interface with clients. Instead of doing busy work, they can actually spend more time talking on the phone with the clients, checking things. It's an interesting path. You know, we had considered another option as well, which, you know, being like the super cheap law firm, but that's not the path that we chose. I think, you know, rather than use technology to be the like lowest cost provider, we decided to instead use the extra time that we have to just provide better service. And in the legal world, I think we haven't seen a lot of advantages to being the cheapest player. I think there's negative signaling that people perceive with that. And there's always going to be someone who's less expensive than you. So, you know, we've seen a lot of benefits from focusing just on client experience.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah, I think the touch points are about the same, but the quality of those touch points is higher. You're not badgering the client for information that they could fill out themselves. You're actually talking about what makes a difference to their company, their intellectual property, and how it affects their, you know, goals.
Yeah, and I think it's perceived as more responsive, particularly on the portal, because if they can see things all the time, and you know, we actually, our docketing system automatically pulls from the U.S. Patent Office, and so any updates we get automatically, and then we're going to be able to automatically show those to the client. So like, instead of having to wait for the firm to send it to you in an email, it will just automatically show up, and so it's actually more responsive than a typical law firm.
Right. Now, have you had any pushback? Because I actually had a guest on last week. Have you had any pushback on discussing it as a portal? Because I know that is like a faux pas thing in legal, because the online portals were, you know, for so many years they weren't real effective. Have you had any pushback on that? Anybody, any difficulties with the portal idea?
Well, I guess for me, I've talked to some lawyers have said like they think that it's, I guess they think it's unproven. Some lawyers think it's unproven, that, you know, they think maybe clients prefer to receive this very, very, you know, crafted email on certain things.
Interesting.
But I think among clients, I think most of them have said that they would appreciate having the opportunity to see it. Andrew, I don't know if you...
Yeah, I mean, we've done, obviously we've talked to our clients, right? And, you know, we've asked them what could make their lives easier. And this was one of the things that came up on the top of their list. Like, how can I get information for myself? Like, I think it also depends on the type of client that you're servicing, right? If you're a large, you know, Fortune 100 company and you have a large in-house team and you have general counsel and you actually have an IP lawyer on staff, maybe that's not as important, right? Because your IP lawyer on staff will do the distillation of information and get it to the CEO or whoever is the decision maker. But here we're working with, the CEOs or the founders of these companies. And I think to them, their time is valuable and they prefer sort of being able to help themselves. So yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the type of client that we're dealing with, and that the answer might be different for different clients.
Sure.
Right. And that totally makes sense. And I think it's a good point. Just touching on that for a bit, like who have you guys seen sort of as like early adopters of your firm? Is it predominantly companies that are sort of anywhere from like seed to sort of like late stage companies? Or does it kind of run the gamut?
So we've focused currently on startups. So we work primarily with startup companies. We have 150 clients so far. We've only been around for a year and a half. Mm-hmm. And so they're primarily seed stage, Series A, Series B companies. So fairly early stage, but they usually have funding. So they are, serious about doing IP protection.
Okay. And have you experienced, can you tell us experience? Are you getting most of your clients in the Bay Area right now, or are people finding you from all over the country?
We do have clients from all over the country and internationally. We do have more of a presence here because of, I guess we have more, this is our headquarters, so naturally. Mm-hmm. And there's also more startups in the area. This is like the center, the startup
central.
Yeah. But we do work with startups all around the world, and we work with them. I mean, we do like video conferences if we can't meet in person, and it works pretty well because startups are pretty tech savvy. We're tech savvy, so that has worked well for us.
Excellent. And so, do you think that is it mostly tech startups that you're dealing with? That kind of is a follow up to that. Is it, or are you getting a variety of startups?
Well, we get a variety of companies we work with. We have a pretty good life sciences group as well. Yeah. But we do a lot of software patents and hardware patents. Okay. Tech companies, a lot of high growth companies that are venture funded. So I would say all types of startups, really.
Excellent. And who is doing what at the team now? The team's bigger than I thought, and when I visited the website, it was quite an impressive team that you have collected. So you're both co-founders. What are the day-to-day roles?
Well, so for me, I'm running the law firm. I'm also doing the development and also operationally running and managing overseeing all the law firm aspects. So all the legal aspects. I manage the legal team. We have a team of about 20 people, 10 lawyers, and then the other half of the company is really technology development, which is Andrew's.
Yeah, so I help direct the vision of where the technology is going to take us. We're pretty evenly split. I'm actually pretty proud of that. Like the interactions that our legal team has with our technology team it's pretty like the frequency is pretty high. We made a conscious effort in our offices to mix them. So we have two rooms in our office, and we could have just put all the legal people in one room and all the coders in the other room. But I think we made a conscious decision that the cross-pollination of ideas is important to sort of the core values of our company. And actually what makes us different than the larger companies who even if like a larger firm, like a big law firm today wants to pivot and embrace technology, I think it's going to be difficult because, they have hundreds of years of inertia behind them. And so what we'd like to say is that our attorneys are all forward-thinking, high vision, practitioners, and they're constantly thinking about how to make the practice better. And guess what? They have someone who can make it happen sitting right next to them.
Right next to them. That's nice.
Right. That's awesome. Do you, so I think what's an interesting dichotomy is I think oftentimes attorneys tend to think that they're the most important person in the room. And in the Bay, engineers are highly coveted. And oftentimes they are some of the most important people in the room. So do you ever have sort of like a clash between ideologies and, you know, where engineering thinks something should go and where the attorneys do? And how do you bridge that gap?
That's interesting. You would think that that would be the case, but you know, I think we did hiring correctly. Like, I think we did a pretty good job of finding people who, you know, while a lot of attorneys are type A's, and even a fair number of engineers are also type A. But I think the people that we've hired are able to come up with solutions without that friction, if you will. Like, basically, they're all very open-minded, and we'll talk through solutions. And if there is disagreement, we tend to come together and find a solution. I don't think I've ever encountered a time here where, you know, legal said it has to be done this way and engineering said it had to be done this way, and we ended up like walking out of the room and not coming up with a solution.
That's good to hear. And do you think that's part of do you think the integrated workspace with legal and engineering together helps to bridge that?
I think so. Yeah, I absolutely think that that's the case. Where, you know, like you said, we're bigger than I thought. You know, we would be in a year. We started with just me and Bryant in a house in Palo Alto, with, you know, the office between our 2 bedrooms, and then now we're, you know, I guess 10 times that size, and it's just unfathomable. But I think that's what's going to make the difference. That's make it or break it for us. It's that tight integration. We go out to lunch every Wednesday, the whole team, legal and technology. And those discussions that we have at lunch are probably some of the more productive ones. Where we're just thinking about everything in life.
Right. Yeah, that's really great to hear. I mean, I think it's sort of like well known, right? So even some of the founders of YCombinator, they say startups are notorious at being bad at making hiring decisions, right? Google doesn't even know how to recruit well, right? So like, how would a startup know how to do it? So it seems like you guys have made 100% great hires, which is awesome. Do you think that there's anything in your process or sort of the candidates that you seek out? Like what's the secret sauce? I think everybody wants to know.
Everybody would want to know this.
Yeah.
Share it, gentlemen.
From my perspective, it's just hard work. It's basically the opposite of garbage in, garbage out. We spend a whole lot of time on this, and I think everyone does, right? And I think to a certain extent, there's some luck, but for sure, it's basically a full-time job, finding quality people. And there are no bones about it. It's difficult. Like, there's no I don't think there's a magic solution. Especially on the tech side in this area, in the Bay Area, it's you're competing with the likes of Google and Microsoft and, you know, every other startup that's in this area. So yeah, I wish I had an answer, but it's just trying to talk to as many people as possible.
And then we also followed, the old startup advice of just hiring your friends. I mean, that has helped a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked to like Andrew's former students, and then we've talked to my former classmates, and people I've worked with, people we've worked with in the past. So I think that has also been really helpful. And I think the other thing that helps is like when you have a really cool idea, that's a big idea. There's a talk by Sam Altman where he's saying like it's easier to start a startup that's doing something really difficult because people will be excited by it, and you're not just doing something really trivial. And so I think that has really helped us too, like something that could change like the entire legal industry. It's easier to capture people's imagination.
Right. And I guess on that point, since you brought it up so eloquently, like what is you guys' moonshoot vision, right? Yes. Where are you in 10 or 20 years? Like what propels you to be $1 billion unicorn?
Well, yeah, the opportunity is not just in IP, but even if we, became, well, the goal is to become the largest and best law firm in anything. And, starting point would be the best in, and largest and best in IP. And that, that opportunity to really provide the best legal services for all people, that would be, a really great beneficial change because the legal services are just way too expensive. A lot of people are unhappy with the quality, even with the prices they pay.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we could change that, I think that's something that is very attractive to many people.
And Nancy did have another comment here that I think you guys will appreciate. She agreed, and comes back to this cost issue, and she said she agreed with you on not being the lowest cost firm, because that's often a race to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a very fair statement. And I do want to thank Nancy Mirlin, Sujesh Krishnan, Mo Lilienthal, and AJ Richmond. Looks like we got a pretty good crew watching. So thank you, everybody. If you have questions for Bryant and Andrew, please share them. Go ahead. Sounded like you had something coming up there, Hannah.
Oh, yeah. I was just about to say,
Sorry, Andrew.
We were reading an article about NPS scores. And NPS scores, like in the software world, they're everything, I guess. That's how you know you've got product market fit. That's how you know you're doing a good job. You're creating the right features, et cetera, et cetera. But apparently someone had done an NPS study on law firms, and I think it was 14%. The NPS score for law firms was 14%, which is terrible. I mean, you couldn't start a software services company with a NPS score like that. So, I think there's definitely a lot of room for improvement there, and that part of where we see ourselves is, creating a law firm in which that is the goal, right? To increase that score across the board. Yeah. So that people are satisfied with their legal services.
The one positive thing I'm seeing through Legal Tech, or that I have seen, is that there are law firms who are now trying to utilize the NPS score for clientele. So that hopefully will improve their ability to deliver better quality service, even for those who may not be in direct competition to you. So we'll see. Hopefully that improves. What have the biggest obstacles? We're coming up on about 35 minutes here, but tell us some obstacles that you guys have faced that were just like, you thought they were overwhelming, but you got through it.
Do you have anything, Andrew?
I mean, hiring is always an obstacle, right? Like, I mean, we just had this conversation about hiring, and that will never end. That obstacle will never end, and everyone's chasing after that golden goose. But in terms of actual challenges, I think, well, I'll tell you what I thought was going to be a challenge, but ended up not really being one, and that's like the idea that clients would not embrace the use of technology by their law firms. And initially, we had I actually had nightmares. Like part of our thesis is that or our long-term play here is using machine learning as well, in doing some of the more difficult parts of the patent prosecution work, which is like drafting and searching. And so one of the things that I was really concerned about in the beginning was like, what client is going to want to go to a firm in which a lawyer is not handling like a lot of these things that I think machines are better at. And it turns out that I don't think that's as big of a concern these days. And I think our clients are more sophisticated and understand what AI is capable of and what AI is good at and what it's not. And they're perfectly willing to have the parts that they know AI would be good at to be done by that, AI. And I think the other part is one of the things that we have tried to emphasize is that we're not trying to replace lawyers. I mean, that would be, I think that would be short-sighted. I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it so that attorneys can spend more time doing the things that they went to law school for. the things that actually require legal education. And to the extent we can do that, I think, we were talking about what is like that moonshot, what is that goal for 10, 20 years? I think part of it is not only becoming the best law firm, but sort of helping to democratize legal services. Bryant once said to me that, there are so many attorneys out there that it's kind of crazy that there are also people who need legal services that can't access them because they're too expensive. And I think as a computer scientist, as a technologist, I think that that's something that we could definitely help solve.
Right. Yeah, no, that is such a spot on sort of vision, mission. It's fundamentally a mismatch between supply and demand, right? And you guys are sort of paving the way to make sure that sort of inequity between the two is solved, which is incredible.
So tell us about one of your best successes, and then we'll start to wrap up. What is the, other than the YCombinator phone call, what's something that just really had you guys stoked?
Well, I mean, there's many, the whole thing has been pretty exciting. So I would say that,
can't put your finger on just one.
We closed a good round of funding. I mean, the $2.8 million seed round, that was exciting. We got really good investors involved. It was a great process at the end of YC. So we had Coastal Ventures, Mayfield Fund, Basis Set Ventures, lots of really great other investors too. And that definitely was, it was fun. Both Andrew and I, that was the first time we'd ever raised funding, and
scary. I'll tell you that much.
I don't think it ever gets easier, right?
It's like, I mean, when the funds hit our bank account, I was like, take a picture of that. I think that's as many digits as I'll ever see in a bank account. Like, so it was, that was actually kind of a cool moment. Like, for me, I think
somebody supporting the vision that you've had now we have some.
We're not crazy, right?
Right.
We're a little crazy, but other people are on board with the craziness.
I like that.
I think for me, it's being like, this is the first time that like, I feel like I've built something that matters to more people than my immediate family, if you will. And, the people I've met along the way, the people that are part of our team now, I think I'm most proud of that, at this moment.
That's great. And it looks like Sujesh is coming in with a last minute question here. And I guess we didn't talk about pricing too much, but he said, for a startup, and he's a CEO of a legal tech startup, for a startup looking to patent their technologies, how does the pricing work? If you can share something briefly about that for us.
So we offer a flat fee pricing, and it's the rate we're at is less than market, or like below at the lower end of the spectrum of the market. So it's a flat fee, and people pay the amount, and then that covers everything. So it includes all the lawyer time on it, all the communications, ask as many questions as you want, unlimited revisions, and then so there's no like hidden cost. You know exactly what the number is. Like it's not an estimate; it's actually that's the cost. Okay. And so you would know ahead of time how much exactly it's going to be.
And is that information available on the website, or is that in the intake process? How does that work?
So that information is shared when we have the phone call conversation with them. So we know what the technology area is, and then what kind of thing they're looking for. And then it's when we send the information to them, we send it to them in the engagement agreement. So that price is there for them in a pricing sheet. Like, here's the service and here's the price that goes with it.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Any last minute questions, Hannah?
No, I think we covered everything. We got in the moon shoot. We got what keeps you up at night. I think we've covered it.
Yeah, so that leaves us with how do people get in touch with you guys if they want to learn more?
Yeah, perfect way to do it is on the website. There's a web form. You can reach out to us. My personal email address, I'm happy to have people just send me their questions directly. So blee at cognitionip.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn if you want to connect there.
Excellent. Andrew?
Well, you can find me through Bryant, or you can find me through the website.
Okay.
Also on LinkedIn. You can contact us through hello@Cognition IP as well.
Yeah, excellent.
And that was both of us. So
yeah, and the website is cognitionip.com. And you guys are on Twitter at cognition_IP. And Hannah, for our viewers, live viewers, and replay viewers, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, definitely. So the name's Hannah Konitshek, and you can just email me at hannah@legal.io.
All right. Excellent. So, gentlemen, thank you so much. Don't disappear. Also, Sujeesh, Nancy, Julie, thanks for being here tonight. And don't disappear when we stop recording, because we'll tell you a little bit about the follow-up on this. All right. So thank you
for having us on.
Hey, thank you for being on. And thanks again, Hannah. Again, our guests tonight were Bryant Lee and Andrew Tjang of Cognition IP. You can find them at cognitionip.com. This is Legal Tech Live, episode 59. Stay tuned for episode 60. Good night, everybody.
Bye, everyone.